This is another one of my older books. If you have any questions, please look at the description. Ariya's Dragon by Elaine Allen. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a dragon in a cave at the top of a tall, dreadful mountain. The mountain stood alone among rolling plains of soft farmland, a fortress of impassable cliffs, the height of giants. If ever there was a place destined to be haunted by a dragon, this mountain was the spot. At the base of the mountain there was a village, a place of plain peasants who did not comprehend the workings of dragons. From the day the village was founded, everything that went wrong was blamed on the dragon. If a child wandered off, the dragon had taken him. If a house burnt down, the dragon had set it on fire. If a cow disappeared, the dragon had eaten it. Well, no one can be wrong all the time. Dragons have to eat. Ariya was the daughter of the town blacksmith. When she was 5 years old, her mother had yelled at her to come inside before dark, or the dragon would get her. The small girl had looked up at the sky and called back, "I don't think it will." Her father had slapped her for back talk. Rather than taking the lesson as the man had intended, Ariya had decided her parents were wrong, and never let go of the idea. Ariya had refused to believe the beast even existed until she saw it herself years later, gliding gracefully across the silver blue moon. The 9-year-old girl had held her breath as the giant wings flapped once, sending the beast past the line of trees and out of her line of sight. She had run home, intent on telling her brother what she had seen, but finding her father in a rage at her for being late, she had held her tongue. 8 years later, she felt nothing but exasperation when the village meeting once more descended to the topic of the dragon. A cattle stampede had destroyed 2 public fences, and of course the cattle's owner shoved blame off to the dragon. "It's hardly my fault that dragon attacked my cows." Off to one side of the square, Ariya sat on an upturned barrel, fiddling with her small reed panpipes. She couldn't play them here. Her father had made it more than clear that piping at meetings would earn her at least a beating, but she still liked the feeling of the warm reeds in her hand. In the center of the square, the farmer was still babbling. "I've lost 3 of my best animals to it this season alone. There is no way I'll have time to rebuild those fences and take care of my stock." Ariya snorted at the farmer's complaint. Even if fewer cows would take more time to care for, rather than less, the fence wouldn't take more than 2 good hours to restack. Dead cows aside, the farmer had gotten what he wanted. All around the square, expressions shifted from aggravation to fear. "You saw the dragon? Oh God, what will we do?" The antsy midwife was predictably thrown into a panic. Clinging to her stout husband's arm, she tugged at him insistently. "What is it, woman?" "Mitch, I'm scared! For the love of God, take me away from here! You said your mother had family off by Angor Port." The tanner's grunt was the only reply he offered his wide-eyed wife. Across the way, one of the other farmers stepped up beside Lucas. "This is the 3rd time this month the dragon has taken one of our animals. How are we supposed to last the winter with that monster constantly eating our livestock?" "Livestock? You're worried about livestock? What about us? Don't forget that I lost my eldest to the dragon 2 years ago." Ariya rolled her eyes. The 16-year-old boy had run off. She had seen him last fall at the harvest festival next town over. "And what are the rest of your children going to eat when all of our stock is dragon dung? We have to do something." The noise level was rising as other villagers spoke up, voicing fears, some of which were only tangentially connected to the dragon. At the dead center of the square, the broad-shouldered man called Master Simon cleared his throat, and when that didn't work, shouted for attention. "This attack on Farmer Lucas's herd was a warning." Of all the people in town, Simon was Ariya's least favorite. Despite being the default mayor, he had never once in all her memory offered a single bit of constructive advice or help. As the owner of the only shop in town, Simon was quite a bit wealthier than his neighbors, and somehow his affluence earned him the title of Master. Somewhere near the shop, a small boy shouted, "The dragon is going to kill us all!" Instead of shushing the boy, his mother pulled him closer, whimpering quietly. The boy's cry was taken up around the square as if it were some terrifying new possibility. Ariya snorted again. If they really believed that the dragon was a danger, they would have moved years ago. Yes, the farms were prosperous, and being so far from the capital had its advantages, but there were miles of unoccupied land all along northern Angles where they could resettle. That dragon wouldn't take the time to kill us, Arya muttered, just under her breath, as if to the fringe that she did not have, but somehow her voice carried. Even the smallest voice froze, turning to stare at her. But no one was moving to stop her. There has never been a single death or disaster involving any dragon anywhere near this town. Most of you have never actually seen a dragon. How do you know it's even there? Arya barely took a breath. She knew she was out of line, but she had the entire town's attention. She was going to say her piece. If it's there, it doesn't care about us. It probably hasn't noticed we exist down here. She found herself suddenly out of breath and out of words, and realized that she had gone too far. She had probably gone too far the second she had opened her mouth. Simon cleared his throat, pointedly not looking at her. I believe it is traditional to offer some kind of sacrifice to dragons. Arya opened her mouth, but no words came out. It was too absurd. Around the square, her neighbors were nodding as if it made sense. The midwife turned a pointed look Arya's way, adding, "A virgin, usually." There were other young girls in the village, but none with quite her reputation for rebuffing the advances of the local boys. Arya looked around desperately. She had always thought of the other two girls of marriageable age as exceptionally stupid, but they were nowhere to be seen. Arya was the one left staring down what was quickly becoming an angry mob. "You've got to be joking!"